adjustment, page 7. Check your understanding. This quiz has a total of 3 questions. There will be 1 question per page. You must achieve 66% to pass this quiz. Start quiz. A district is an area characterized by blank land use. A. Contradictory. B. Varied. C. Incongruous. Or D. Homogeneous. I'm going to go D. Homogeneous. Number 2. A group of complementary land uses, a congruous group of inhabitants, buildings, and business enterprises is the definition of A. Neighborhood. B. Market area. C. District. Or D. Marketing area. I'm going to go C, district. Number 3. The concept of real estate value being linked to location comes to us from the economist A. William Kinnard, B. Alfred Marshall, C. Adam Smith, or D. Irving Fisher. It's either A or B. I'm going to go A, William Kinnard. Finish. You failed. You got a 33.3%. So remember. Number 1. A district is an area characterized by blank land use. You said homogeneous, and that was correct. Number 2. A group of complementary land uses, a congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, or business enterprises is the definition of. You said a district. That's wrong. The correct answer was neighborhood. A group of complementary land uses, a congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, or business enterprises is the definition of a neighborhood. Number 3. The concept of real estate value being linked to location comes to us from the economist. You said William Kinnard. That was wrong. The correct answer was Alfred Marshall. The concept of real estate value being linked to location comes to us from the economist Alfred Marshall. Try again. Retake. Chapter 7, Location Adjustments, page 7. Check your understanding. Start quiz. Number 1. A group of complementary land uses, a congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, or business enterprises is the definition of A. Neighborhood, B. Market area, C. District, and D. Marketing area. I'm going to go A. Neighborhood. Number 2, a district is an area characterized by blank land use. A, contradictory. B, vary. C, incongruous. And D, homogeneous. I'm going to go D, homogeneous. And lastly, number 3, the concept of real estate value being linked to location comes to us from the economist. A, William Kennard. B, Alfred Marshall. C, Adam Smith. And D, Irving Fisher. I'm going to go B, Alfred Marshall. Assessment completed. Finished. You passed. You got 100%. So remember, a group of complementary land uses, a congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, or business enterprises is the definition of, you said, a neighborhood, and that is correct. Number 2, a district is in an area characterized by blank land use. You said homogeneous, and that is correct. And number 3, the concept of real estate value being linked to location comes to us from the economist. You said Alfred Marshall. That is correct. Continue.
Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG8 district. Notes. Leave a comment. District. The term district was introduced when the definition of neighborhood was changed from homogeneous to a more inclusive terminology. District is defined as an area in which there is homogeneous use. Examples of districts commonly include a business district, residential district, apartment district, office district, medical district, industrial district, etc. A neighborhood could include other uses that would be complementary. A district has one predominant land use. Subdistricts. Within a single residential area, you may find numerous different subdistricts, each with its own distinct flavor and reputation. These include production-style subdivisions, custom-built subdivisions, condos/townhouses, rural/semi-rural areas, senior developments, multifamily properties designed as rentals, historic areas. Be sure to account for differences in subdistricts in your neighborhood and market analysis. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG9 market area. Notes. Leave a comment. Market area. Market area is a more recent term that has become the preferred terminology for several reasons. It is a broader terminology that avoids the somewhat confusing definitions of the other two terms. You can include both neighborhoods and districts, or a combination thereof. Market area concentrates more on where people live and work. Market area focuses on competition and defines itself by looking at reactions of typical buyers and sellers for that type of property. In trying to define and delineate boundaries for a sphere of influence in which factors can impact value, market area encompasses all the factors that an appraiser needs to evaluate. Click here to download a handout that summarizes and contrasts the terms neighborhood, district, and market area. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG10 market area factors. Notes. Leave a comment. Market area factors. Every situation is different and some factors may not apply. However, there are many external market forces or factors that could come into play. On a piece of scratch paper, Make a list of at least 10 possible factors or influences on value that may impact a property. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. TG11 market area factors. Notes. Leave a comment. Market area factors. Here is a list of some possible factors. It certainly is not an all-inclusive list, and in some instances, these factors may not exert much influence. You need to ask yourself, which 3 or 4 or 5 factors exert the most influence in this particular location. Socioeconomic status of residents. Average age of residents. Average wage of residents. Unemployment rates. Interest rates. Building costs. Quality of schools. Proximity to major employers. Access to recreational facilities. Access to transportation hubs. Access to shopping. Availability and cost of utilities. Houses of worship. Higher education opportunities. Style of homes. Size of lots. Zoning. Deed restrictions. Building codes. Street patterns. Maintenance of existing properties. Density. Open space. Streetlights, sidewalks, benches. Wind patterns. Climate. Threat of mudslides, tidal waves, flooding. Air traffic noise. Homeowner covenants/restrictions. Crime watch groups. Property owner clubs. Rentals versus owner-occupied properties. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG12 Fannie Mae. Notes. Leave a comment. Fannie Mae. In the selling guide, Fannie Mae says this in the 4-1.3-03 neighborhood section of the appraisal report. Any underlining has been added by the author for purposes of emphasis. Neighborhood characteristics and trends influence the value of 1 to 4 unit residences. Therefore, an analysis of the subject property's neighborhood is a key element in the appraisal process. As a reminder, Fannie Mae purchases mortgages secured by properties in all neighborhoods and in all areas, as long as the property is acceptable as security for the mortgage based on its value and marketability. Neighborhood analysis. Fannie Mae's appraisal report forms and guidelines do not require the appraiser to rate or judge the neighborhood. Fannie Mae requires the appraiser to perform an objective neighborhood analysis by identifying neighborhood boundaries, neighborhood characteristics, and the factors that affect the value and marketability of properties in the neighborhood. Neighborhood boundaries. The appraiser should provide an outline of the neighborhood boundaries, which should be clearly delineated using north, south, east, and west. These boundaries may include, but are not limited to streets, legally recognized neighborhood boundaries, waterways, or other natural boundaries that define the separation of one neighborhood from another. Appraisers should not reference a map or other addendum as the only example of the neighborhood boundaries. Neighborhood characteristics. These can be addressed by the types of structures, detached, attached, and architectural styles in the neighborhood, such as row or townhouse, colonial, ranch, or Victorian. Current land use, such as single-family residential, commercial, or industrial. Typical site size, such as 10,000 SF, or 2.00 AC, or street patterns or design, such as one-way street, cul-de-sac, or court. Factors that affect the value and marketability of properties in the neighborhood. These can be addressed by such things as the proximity of the property to employment and amenities, employment stability, appeal to the market, changes in land use, access to public transportation, and adverse environmental influences. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG13 Fannie Mae continued. Notes. Leave a comment. Fannie Mae continued. Continuing with information from the Fannie Mae Selling Guide. The appraiser must fully consider all of the value influencing characteristics in the neighborhood and arrive at an appropriate neighborhood description and opinion of value for the property, even if this requires more extensive research for particular property types or for properties in certain geographic locations. An appraiser must perform a neighborhood analysis in order to identify the area that is subject to the same influences as the property being appraised, based on the actions of typical buyers. The results of a neighborhood analysis enable the appraiser not only to identify the factors that influence the value of properties in the neighborhood, but also to define the area from which to select the market data needed to perform a sales comparison analysis. In performing a neighborhood analysis, the appraiser collects pertinent data, conducts a visual inspection of the neighborhood to observe its physical characteristics and determine its boundaries, and identifies land uses and any signs that the land uses are changing. The selling guide goes on. The appraiser must determine, analyze, and consider the factors that should be considered in the valuation process based on his or her identification of all forces or factors that have the potential to influence the value of the property. If an appraiser can demonstrate by market evidence that a characteristic has an effect on the value or marketability of the properties in the neighborhood or market area, he or she should consider it in the valuation process. Otherwise, the appraiser should not consider it. The appraiser also must not make unsupported assumptions or interject personal opinion or perceptions about market forces or other factors that may or may not affect the use and value of a property. For example, a property located in an older neighborhood can be as sound an investment as a property located in a new neighborhood. End of page. Chapter start. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG14 Fannie Mae continued. Notes. Leave a comment. Fannie Mae continued. Continuing with the neighborhood analysis section of the Fannie Mae Selling Guide. Fannie Mae expects the appraiser and the lender's underwriter to be aware of the varying conditions that characterize different types of neighborhoods. Conditions that are typical in certain neighborhoods may not be present in other neighborhoods. This does not mean that the existence of certain types of conditions or characteristics are unacceptable. Rather, it is an indication that they must be viewed in context with the nature of the neighborhood in which the security property is located. For example, some neighborhoods consist of a variety of property types that have different uses. It is not uncommon to find properties that have mixed uses, such as residential properties that also have child care facilities, doctor or dental offices, and other types of business or commercial uses. The presence of mixed-use properties, or a variety of property types within a neighborhood, should be viewed as a neighborhood characteristic that the appraiser considers when performing the neighborhood analysis and describing the neighborhood boundaries. The appraiser must consider the influence of market forces, including, but not limited to, economic, governmental, and environmental factors on property values in the neighborhood. Economic forces that must be considered include such things as the existence of vacant or boarded-up properties in the neighborhood and the level of essential local support services. Examples of governmental forces that should be taken into consideration include the regulations, laws, and taxes that are imposed on properties. Environmental forces that must be considered include, among other things, the existence of a hazardous waste site on or near the property, and the proximity of a property to an airport. Certain other factors that are not appraisal factors, such as the racial or ethnic composition of a neighborhood, or the age or sex of the individuals who live in a particular neighborhood, must not be considered in the valuation process. Chapter start. 42%. Residential sales comparison and income approaches. Help. Documents. Email instructor. CH7 location adjustments. PG15 market area boundaries. Notes. Leave a comment. Market area boundaries. An appraiser must determine the boundaries of the area of influence, whether they be neighborhood, district, or market area surrounding the subject property, in order to decide what other properties can be considered reasonable comparables. A market area is an area in which other properties effectively compete for the favors of a potential buyer. There are no hard and fast rules. A market area does not necessarily coincide with a town, village, subdivision, or other designated or mapped area. A market area could be as small as a block or two, or as large as a county or several counties. In this context, we are considering residential properties. Certain commercial or industrial properties might have a market area that is nationwide or international in scope. Even some exceptional residential properties could have appeal to potential purchasers from all over the country or all over the world. Think of a mansion in Beverly Hills or a private island in the Caribbean. End of page. Chapter start. 43%.
Being as the boundaries of a market area are indeterminate, we have to brainstorm for each new assignment and determine what comprises the market area for that specific property. Perhaps a residence in a suburban development is competing with all other properties within a half-hour commute from the city. A resort home might be competing with other resort properties within a 2-hour circle of a main population center. On the other hand, a newly constructed house may be competing with just a few other new homes in the same development. We start our quest by proceeding out from our subject property in all directions. If it is in an area with which we are not that familiar, this may entail getting in the car and driving around. If it is a familiar area, you may mentally make a journey to all 4 points of the compass and think about what you would pass along the way. We have to extend our search far enough to include all value-affecting influences. Remember again that some of these are social, some are economic, governmental, and environmental. These can include myriad factors. Once we have satisfied ourselves that we have fulfilled our search requirements, we can figuratively or literally on a map draw boundaries around the area of influence, that is, the market area.